I'd like to call our Nash County Board of Commissioners meeting to order at this time for April the 4th. It is customary for us to begin each one of our meetings with a prayer by a sitting commissioner. During this time, you're welcome to stand and join us in the prayer. You're welcome to use it for the time for your own prayer or a moment of silence, whichever you so choose. And after the prayer, we will have pledge allegiance to the flag that Commissioner Outlaw will lead us in, and certainly ask you to join us on that. And at this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Sue Leggett for the invocation. Thank you.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, as we gather together today, we're especially thankful for the blessings and bounty that you provide for us each and every day. We pray for those who need your healing hand and for your reassurance. And we're especially thankful for your forgiveness when we don't live up to our daily expectations. Lord, please be with us today as we conduct the business of Nash County, that you may guide and lead us to do what is right and in your will. All of these things we ask in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes, and during the month of March, we had 3 meetings. We had our regular meeting on March the 7th, and we had our budget, we call it a retreat, I'm not sure why, but we had our 2-day meeting on our upcoming budget, and they were on the 23rd and the 24th, and at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes or any corrections or additions that need to be made to the minutes.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. One item, Madam Clerk, on page 19 and page 45, if these are the official documents, look at those, and I don't think they are dated, and you may want to substitute a dated document for those, but that's all I had on that.
Yes, sir, I can do that.
Actually, it's 19, 45, 59, and 73.
Okay.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion as amended or additions added to, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries, and Madam Clerk, as always, we certainly appreciate the job you do for the board. Ladies and gentlemen, now we're on item number 5, which is a public comment area, and during this time, you're welcome to come up to the podium, state your name and address. If there's anything you would wish to present to the board that's not otherwise shown on the agenda, we would like to hear from you on anything that may be on your mind, and we do have a sign-up period out front, but if you happen to miss that, the board is eager to hear from its citizens, so you can, after the people that signed up speak, you're welcome to come forward. And I do want to point out one thing, that we do have one item on the agenda today, item number 9, that is not a public hearing, and if there's someone here that wishes to speak on that item, you would need to do it under the public comment area, or this item that we're on now. So just think about that. If there's someone here that wishes to speak on item number 9, you could do it after the speakers that have signed up. Mr. Durham, does that protocol meet your approval, okay, sir?
I think that's fine. You probably should tell them what item 9 is.
Okay, well, I felt like if they were here, they knew what item 9 was, but I will indeed do that, thank you. It is a subdivision waiver request for 7695 Stony Creek Lane. And normally, something of that nature, or any rezoning or things of that nature has a public hearing, but this particular item in our ordinance does not require a public hearing, so there will not be one. But with that said, I will call on the first speaker that signed up, and it is a Reverend Nehemiah Smith. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nehemiah Smith, Jr. I live at 1620 East Virginia Street, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. That is in Edgecombe County. However, I work in Nash County and I own property in Nash County. I wanted to talk this morning, first of all, to invite you to a community meeting that we're having called Demerger. They don't care about our children. It will be held on the 18th, Monday, April the 18th, at the OIC Auditorium at 6 p.m. Beginning at 6 p.m. We will have a number of speakers there, but it's there for informational purposes to help our community to better understand what is meant by demerger. Now, demerger, what is being proposed is not demerger. I'm an old English teacher, so just bear with me if you will. Demerger means that something has been put together, and when you separate it, that you're going to separate that thing into its original parts. What is being proposed is not demerger, it's separation. Separation means you can separate it along whatever lines. When we look at demerger, especially when it deals with our children, the rumor that is going around the neighborhood and we want to dispel is that this Board of Commissioners would refuse to, even if presented to them plans for a new school in Edgecombe County, would refuse to put money towards building a new school for students in Edgecombe County. And in that, we have almost $11 million plus of deferred maintenance on those schools. It would be, it's baffling to why you would not want to build a new school for those students that are in Edgecombe County. But if that is true, then of course the title for our forum would apply to this board, that you don't care about our children. So we're inviting you to come to be a part of this conversation that we're having with the people in our community. Don't let the they be you. So we look forward to the 18th. We look forward to seeing each and every one of you there. And we will be not only inviting you, but the members of the Nash School Board, Edgecombe School Board, as well as the Edgecombe County Commissioners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Reverend Smith.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Ma'am, I do hear you. It is customary for us to not address a public speaker.
I just had a question.
Okay, go ahead with your question, ma'am.
I wanted to know the time of that meeting.
That's certainly, I apologize, that's certainly a valid question, 6 o'clock. Thank you, Reverend Smith. All right, that is the only person I had to sign up prior to the meeting. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak at this time about any other item that didn't know they needed to sign up? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Y'all come up one at a time to the podium, and we'll be glad to hear from you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sherry Allen. I'm a resident on this Stony Creek Lane, and this is in reference to number 9 on your current agenda today for the subdivision waiver request for 7695 Stony Creek Lane. I believe some of the residents had sent letters as well, and we just wanted to make sure you did get the letters. It's an unfortunate event that the family that's involved is at a point now where they're at a standstill, and that, excuse me, I'm nervous.
You don't need to be nervous, regular folks.
And that the proposed fix is a waiver that is waiving something that's been in existence since 1991. It's worked for our community, and we feel that there's maybe other options before getting to this point for the family. And I believe some of the residents have written letters proposing such fixes. So we just wanted to offer that as an option before the waiver. We feel that the waiver would represent some future problems Pandora's box, so to speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Madam Clerk, did you get her
I'm sorry, with you.
address?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
You know, I have a fear of public speaking.
I didn't know that, but there's no need to in this room.
That's why I haven't ever gotten up here. But that.
You won't
I'm
be able to say
Carolyn
that
McGee.
tomorrow.
I'm Carolyn McGee, and we've lived down there since 1990. And I feel sorry for this family with what this has happened. But her mother, Miss Williams, has asked us, my husband is the head of the road committee, and she has asked us over several years, few years, I'd say, about this, and we have told them repeatedly that it couldn't be done. It was against the county, it was against the subdivision, but then all of a sudden, somebody told them that they could, and so it's gotten to this point. But this was not something new. It wasn't something that they just found out. It's something that they've been told for at least a few years that they couldn't do, because this was not a new occurrence. So that's what I feel everybody that I've talked to in our subdivision is saying. Why should our subdivision have to change the integrity of the subdivision and change our community because of the county's mistake? I mean, could something be done, like the deed be put in all 4 names? And it's not that a house can't be built. Am I correct, Mr. Tyson?
I'll speak on that.
A second resident can be put on that land, if I'm correct. It's just the deed being put into 2 5-acre lots. So it looks like there would be a situation where it could just be put in all the names instead of dividing it against the will.
Thank you, Ms. McGee.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all for being here this morning. Anyone else that has?
Yes, we would like to.
Let me finish up this item, Bronson, and then I'll be with you, sir. Yes, ma'am, come on forward. You're on the same item?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They're the applicant.
They were the applicant, okay, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So our family has never been told by anyone at the county that the land could not be
Let me
subdivided.
get your name and address.
Shelley Milburn,
And your address.
7695 Stony Creek Lane,
Okay,
and this is my husband, Brian.
thank you.
Our family's never been told by anybody at the county that the land could not be subdivided. So that was the reason why we all came down that day and we spoke with Mr. Culpepper. And we wanted clarification and confirmation that it could be done, and we were told that it could. I have that in writing. He confirmed that in an email, that there was no reason why it could not be subdivided. We sat down, we looked at the maps together. We discussed it, and it was said that, yes, it could be done. So based on that information and the confirmation in writing, we actually put our house up for sale within the month. We did many repairs to the house to get it prepared for sale. We sold it. It closed officially in October, but it went under contract in September. That entire time, we were under the impression that this would be our plan, that we would move in with our parents in the plan to subdivide and sell and live there and build a house. We thought this was great because it would be, and my parents are, getting up there in age, and so we thought this would be great to be close to them and help them. And this would be 2 separate 5-acre lots. It's not going to be any new roadways. We are using their driveway. This is not something that's going to impact anyone else's property. So, I think that the main thing is that we were told that we could subdivide. We were never told by anybody in the county that it could not be done. If it was discussed, like within citizens or whatever, it was never confirmed by the county that it was not able to be done. Then we went that day and they said it could.
We don't know what other options have been presented to the board for this situation that we may consider. We have looked at adding us to that deed and having us build a separate residence, which we were told by Mr. Tyson that is a possibility, to have 2 residences on one single lot. The problem with that comes financing for building that house, with, having, and the resale of that property. Eventually, if it comes to that, having 2 residences on one single lot, that would be very difficult to market with that. you'd have to have a very special buyer for that situation.
Yeah, they would have to buy both
And-
properties.
And tying my in-laws and Shelley's parents to our mortgage or any loans that we may have to take out to build that house, just doesn't seem quite fair to us to put them in that situation.
Right.
And it just seems a little messy to have two residences on that same lot. So, like I said, we've looked at different avenues. We spoke to Mr. Tyson and looked, he helped us tremendously exploring different avenues that we might could go down to accomplish the goal that we eventually had. But a lot of them just didn't quite make sense.
Yeah, we looked into also getting annexed into the town of Red Oak. Mr. Tyson had suggested that, but they said that they had the same requirements, so that was not an avenue we could take.
And this property is kind of the second property on that lane when you come to it. So the impact on the road into that community will be very minimal. It's not a lot of traffic going down that entire lane. The property that we would pass going to that, they do not enter off of Stony Creek Lane, they enter off of Wallet Mill Lane. So it would be very minimal impact to the community really to have an extra, private dwelling on that property.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anyone else here wish to speak on item 9? Mr. Williams?
I want to say good morning to everybody. Certainly, we just heard about the announcement of the meeting, but
State your name.
Sure,
and-
Bronson Williams, 1230 Cokie Road in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. That's actually in Ward 3, in our community, lifelong resident there in the community. But what I do want to speak about is the history of this board. I haven't been able to find it as of yet. If this board has ever had a female chairperson. We know over the years, we have been seeing our nation shatter glass ceilings. We've seen this board here even appoint the first female county manager. So we do know there are 2 females on this board today, and I think this board has had a few years of having histories of a female, at least on the board, from my most recent experience. But I've never seen a female chair, and I'm going to ask the same of Edgecombe County Commission tonight, that when we see young women in our community, I have a daycare center, we want them to see a reflection of themselves too, that they are too in leadership. I just left a leadership summit in Charlotte, North Carolina with Bishop T.D. Jakes, and how women in our country has always had a hard time mustering up the same level of pay, the same level of respect, with having the unique ability to do that. I think we'll be setting a great example, as you've demonstrated through the fine selection of our county manager, that when you decide to appoint or vote on the next chairperson, no disrespect to Chairman Davis, certainly I think you're a fine person to talk and share comments often, but what type of image would we be setting for our community if we took a bold step of doing something that perhaps this county has never done before? And if they have, great. But if they haven't, I think in 2022, 2023, or the years to come, that we do something that we've never done. We get uncomfortable, because in our discomfort is when the best starts to shine. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, and I appreciate your comments and take them respectfully. You might also note that me being chairman is the first time we've ever had a Republican chairman as well, sir, for the record. Not that that matters a lot for this board, because we don't work along partisan politics. Anyone else wish to speak? All right, if no one else wishes to speak, we'll move on to item number 6, which is a sheriff's office donation of a bloodhound K9. And I'll call on our Major Eddie Moore. You must have got back in the early hours of the morning, sir.
It was late last night, yes, sir.
Okay.
Traffic was terrible.
Well, did y'all drive down?
Yes, sir.
You did? Well, you must have done something right while you were down there, and if you would announce why you were down there, that would be nice as well while you had the podium.
Yes, sir, and obviously we'll have more information coming, but our agency attended a CALEA Commission review this weekend in Orlando, Florida, where we became one of only 10 sheriff's offices in the state of North Carolina that's CALEA accredited.
Let's let the board give them a hand for that.
What I'm here before you today for is pretty straightforward. We have one of our bloodhound canines that was donated to us back in 2017 as a puppy. We've trained the dog up, and for whatever reason, dogs are like people. They have different temperaments, and the dog has become increasingly aggressive over the course of time, so much so that he's gotten to the point where we really can't handle him. Obviously, we do a lot of public relations events with our canines and things like that, and so it's become an issue. And so what we're asking for is for the dog to be donated to the Department of Corrections. They use bloodhounds for tracking and things like that. Obviously, they're not doing public, relations events like we are. And they're a little more, have a little more training in handling those types of dogs and bloodhounds and stuff like that. So that's what we're asking for.
Any questions from the board on this item?
I mean, they do,
Mr.
can
Belfield?
the correction department, can they do anything different than you all are doing?
Well, they've got a little more experience with bloodhounds. Typically most of our canines that we use for the patrols are either like the German Shepherds or the Belgian Malinois. And for those dogs, for lack of better words, you want a little bit of aggression with them for certain things that they do, because they're trained to bite and apprehend, suspects and things like that. These dogs are not. They're trained specifically for tracking. The bloodhounds are. So, you don't want to take the chance of, if you're tracking a lost child or something like that, that they would, bite, or obviously if we're doing PR events or things like that. So they have a little more expertise in handling bloodhounds than what we do. And like I said, this dog was donated to us in 2017. It was the first bloodhound that we'd had. So we don't have as much experience with those types of dogs as we do like with the other dogs.
Yeah, bloodhounds are very aggressive, and you never know when they may make an attack.
Yeah, we've worked with this dog and tried to correct those issues, and it's got to the point where we're not going to be able to do anything with him.
Other questions?
And they're willing to accept.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Leggett?
When we give up this dog, will another dog need to be purchased or?
Right, at this time, not right now. Okay, yeah.
Ms. Wilkins?
Major Moore, is the handler the one who actually handles the dog? I take it he's in agreement with this?
Yes, sir. And our handler, too, just kind of, reiterate the point, our handler is actually an experienced dog guy. I mean, he trains, duck dogs and things like that. So he's got a lot of experience with dogs. And for him to say that the dog's got to the point where we can't do anything with him, that says a lot.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Entertain a motion for approval.
So,
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, second by Commissioner Leggett, or whichever way Madam Clerk wish to record it, that we're at the same time. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Major
Mr.
Moore.
Chairman,
Congratulations. Yes, sir.
Before the major steps down, for the benefit of the public, I think I have a pretty good idea, and I'm sure this board does. Could you just tell us what CALEA certification means? In my mind, it means that you're one of the 10 best departments in the state of North Carolina.
Yes, sir. So what CALEA is, real quickly, is an international organization, and they set standards for law enforcement agencies. And we had 180 standards that we had to meet, which is everything from anything dealing with law enforcement, pursuits, use of force, recruitment, training, the list goes on and on. And they set these standards, and they say, to be the top of the best, your agency needs to meet all these standards. And that's what we've been working on for the last 3 years, is putting our policies and procedures in place to meet these standards. And not only do you have to have policies and procedures, but then you have to prove that you are meeting those standards as well. And that was done through a file review of all of our policies and procedures, our proofs, and then we actually did an on-site where they come and actually look at your facilities and look at your stuff, what you're doing. Property and evidence is typically a big issue for a lot of agencies. So they look at all those types of things, how you're collecting your evidence, how you're keeping it, storing it. So you have to meet these standards. And once you reach CALEA accreditation, it's not, okay, we've reached it, we're done. It's an ongoing process. So they review your stuff on an annual basis, and then every 4 years we have an on-site visit where they come and make sure you're continuing to do what you need to do.
So it's a direct reflection of your personnel and their ability to perform their function.
Yes, sir. And what it does, I mean, like you said, there's only 10 sheriff's offices out of 100, obviously, in the state of North Carolina that are CALEA accredited. There are a lot of police agencies that are, or police departments that are CALEA accredited. I think there's a couple hundred of them in North Carolina. But what it does, like I said, it puts us at the top. It helps not only the sheriff's office, it helps the county, because, if somebody were to come in and say, well, your officers are poorly trained in whatever use of force, we can show them, no, they're not. We have use of force training here, and here on an annual basis, those types of things.
I think it's a great reflection on the sheriff's office and the county.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
One comment. Why don't you push this, that more county sheriff's offices work toward meeting those standards across the state? And I was just thinking as you were explaining it, that your association is very active, and I'll take that suggestion to get the sheriff, take that suggestion to the association.
Yeah, well, each department or each agency is obviously individual and make up their own decisions what they want to do. This was something Sheriff Stone, started pushing for, and we started in 2018, the end of 2018. And, obviously we can't make everybody else's decision for them. Now, the state of North Carolina is working towards an accreditation program themselves that, I don't know if it'll be to the level of CALIA accreditation, but that's something that the state itself is working towards. And, I don't know if it'll be where they require all law enforcement agencies to be part of that state accreditation or not. I'm not sure, but that stuff hasn't, been fully, finished up yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, just an idea that I think.
Yeah, obviously it would be great if every agency was like that. But, this was a lot of hard work, and some agencies just don't want to put that work into it, for whatever reason. Because, there is a lot of work involved, there is some cost involved. So some agencies just choose not to do that.
It would be a great reflection on the counties across the state.
Yes, sir. And like I said, I think it puts our sheriff's office up there in the top tier of those in the state and says that, we're some of the best of the best.
Thank you, Major.
Thank you.
Thank all of y'all for your hard work.
Thank you.
All right, we're now on item number 7, which is the monthly tax report. We have moved those items up on the agenda today. Ms. Sumner, I first would say I'm sorry for your loss and
Thank you,
funeral
sir.
you'll be attending and need to get out of here pretty early.
Yes,
I
sir.
understand.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to present the monthly tax report. As you all know, this report is designed to keep the board current on activities in the tax collector's office. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. However, it is recommended that you accept the report so that it'll be noted in the minutes. And I'd be glad to answer any questions if anyone had any.
Questions on the tax report? Thank you, ma'am, and we will
Right.
note it to be recorded in the record.
All right, thank you.
And you can move on to item number 8, which is tax refunds.
Yes, and we do have one tax refund that we need approval so that we may disperse the funds. And if anyone has any questions on that refund, I'd be glad to answer that.
Any questions on that one? I made a note on my agenda. Was it an aircraft?
Yes, sir. It was an airplane that was hangared at the Rocky Mount Wilson Airport, and it belonged to some active duty military personnel. And if you are active duty military personnel stationed within the state of North Carolina, and this is not your home of record, then that personal property is exempt.
Okay,
So,
great. I don't think I've had that one come before, have we?
yeah. No, sir.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the tax refund.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, seconded by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so
for your
much.
department's work for Nash County.
Thank you.
We're now on item number 9, which is a subdivision waiver request for 7695 Stony Creek Lane. I'll turn it over to the planning director, Adam Piper, at this time.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
The fact that this item does not require a public hearing under our ordinance has resulted in a little bit of a disjointed presentation this morning where you've heard the public comments without the benefit of the context of the staff report. So I hope to answer any questions and help you inform your decision this morning. We are here because of a mistake made by my office Although we are able to recognize that mistake, we don't have the power to necessarily resolve it without the intervention of this board. And so that's the purpose of this item this morning. Although we've made the mistake, the standard requirements of the ordinance stand unless they are waived by the board. Of course, we know that we have a big responsibility in our office to provide accurate and correct information because people are basing their financial decisions on the information and determinations that we make. And this has been an unfortunate situation for everybody. The subject property is highlighted in red on both the left and the right side of the screen. The left side of the screen is an aerial photo. The right side is the zoning map. It is a 10.01 acre lot known as Lot 14 of the Stony Creek Farms subdivision. All the lots that are immediately adjacent to Stony Creek Lane are the Stony Creek Farms subdivision. The lot in question is owned by Lloyd and Sabrina Williams. As you can see on the zoning map from the light green color, it is currently zoned A1 agricultural. And this is a unique subdivision because it is partially inside the town of Red Oaks municipal limits and partially in the county's zoning jurisdiction. So all of the gray lots are in the town of Red Oaks municipal limits. That also coincides with Commissioner Davis's district. And then the lots that are green are in the county's jurisdiction and are in Mr. Arrington's commissioner district. The lot has one single-family dwelling located where you see the address point here at 7695 Stony Creek Lane. This subdivision was established in 1991, and Stony Creek Lane is a 50-foot wide private access easement that provides access to each of the residential lots from Wallet Mill Road. Our ordinance limits the number of lots that can be served by a private access easement to 3 or less interior residential lots and no more than 4 lots total, including corner lots and remaining tracts. Well, if the ordinance limitation is 4 lots, how did we end up with 18 lots? To answer that, I would refer to the size of the lot. Each of these lots are greater than 10 acres in size, meaning that because of their large size, they're exempted by state statute from local subdivision regulations, whether that's the counties or the town of Red Oaks. And so these lots, because of their large size, did not have to meet the standard subdivision requirements of the county, and that's why you have so many that are served by an access easement. However, the creation of any lots that would be smaller than 10 acres would be subject to local subdivision regulations and would run up against that 4-lot limitation, which of course is already exceeded because there's 18 lots there. The subject property cannot be subdivided currently because of the status of that road as a private access easement. Now, there was some talk during the public comment about the fact that this lot is wide enough and large enough under the county's standards to place a second home if we could get around the need to subdivide. However, because this is an access easement and not a public or private road, the second home could not be built without the waiver that's requested this morning. Other avenues would include the upgrade of at least the front portion of this road from an access easement to a public or private road. I can't give you an estimate on the cost there. That would involve an engineer who could describe that, but it could potentially be expensive. And then, of course, the other opportunity would be to request a text amendment, which would, if passed, likely have a wider impact on the county than just this subdivision. I want to take you through briefly the timeline of events. Ms. Milburn, who spoke during public comments, the daughter of the property owner, met with a member of the planning staff on July 7th of last year to discuss subdividing this property into 2 new lots. One in the front for the property owner's existing dwelling, and an additional lot in the rear for the construction of a new dwelling for Ms. Milburn and her husband. Stony Creek Lane is depicted on the county tax maps just like a public road would be depicted. And that is a symptom of the fact that it was mapped many years ago when we had less technological accuracy than we have now. And so due to that depiction, the staff member mistakenly determined it to be a public road, did not realize it was a private access easement, and informed Ms. Milburn that the property did meet the dimensional requirements to allow it to be subdivided into 2 lots. And again, that would be true except for the status of the road as an access easement. On July 14th, about a week later, Ms. Milburn requested and received via email a written confirmation of that determination from the staff member. On January 19th of this year, Mr. Milburn met with a different member of the staff to again discuss the proposed subdivision of the subject property. At that meeting, Mr. Milburn was informed by the staff that Stony Creek Lane was actually a private access easement instead of a public road, and that the proposed subdivision would violate that lot limitation we just discussed for the number of lots to be served by an access easement. And of course, we talked about how each of these lots is exempt by virtue of their large size, bigger than 10 acres, but the subdivision would result in 2 5-acre lots, and they would be subject to that regulation and limitation. Ms. Milburn, in response to that meeting, forwarded the written confirmation she had previously received from our office and asked about the potential appeal options. The following day, January 20th, at the request of the planning staff, Ms. Milburn provided via email a description of the actions that were taken by her and her husband on the basis of that incorrect written confirmation they had received. First, they had completed multiple repairs and upgrades to their former home to prepare it for sale. Secondly, they actually sold the home in October of 2021. And then finally, they relocated to the smaller temporary accommodations within the existing home on this property with Ms. Milburn's parents in anticipation of the subdivision of the lot and the construction of a new dwelling to happen this year. Ms. Milburn also stated in her message that purchasing or constructing a new dwelling that would be comparable to their previous home somewhere other than the subject property would now be complicated by the recent increase in housing prices that we're all aware of. As the Milburns stated, at my suggestion, they explored the possibility of being annexed into the immediately adjacent municipal limits of the town of Red Oak, but they found that the town has a similar limitation to the county as to the number of lots that can be served by an easement, and so that would not have been beneficial to them. The ordinance contains a provision that grants authority to the Nash County Board of Commissioners to approve waivers of specific subdivision ordinance standards in cases, quote, where through an unintentional error by the applicant, his agent, or the reviewing staff, there is a minor violation of a standard in this article, where such violation is not prejudicial to the value or development potential of the subdivision or adjoining properties. And so, of course, in this case, the unintentional error was made by the reviewing staff, and the Milburns have responded by requesting a waiver of the limit on the number of lots that can be served on an easement under the grounds that this was an unintentional error. The Milburns have employed Strickland Land Surveying to create a subdivision sketch plan, a hypothetical plan that shows how the property could be subdivided. You'll note that there is 1 lot for the existing home in its current location, and then this road frontage would be connected through a strip to the larger acreage in the back where the second home would be permitted. The waiver is requested on the grounds that 1, the planning staff made an unintentional error by incorrectly identifying Stony Creek Lane as a public road instead of a private access easement and issuing a written confirmation stating that. And number 2, that the Milburns committed to a plan to subdivide the property to accommodate the construction of their new home directly on the basis of that incorrect written confirmation. The 2 proposed lots otherwise satisfy the applicable zoning and subdivision requirements, so they are wide enough, they include enough acreage. There are no obvious problems with the subdivision other than the limitation for lots served on an easement. We have reviewed, although it's not directly in our purview, the restrictive covenants for Stony Creek Farm subdivision, at least as they are attached to the deed for the subject property. Those covenants state that the property, quote, shall not be redivided more than one time, and if redivided, shall not result in more than 2 separate parcels of land. And so based on my elementary interpretation of that, I don't believe the subdivision would be in direct conflict with the restrictive covenants. This is a one-time waiver. If approved, it does not set a precedent for other lots in the subdivision. It does not set a precedent for other subdivisions. This is an easy mistake to make. It's an unfortunate mistake. As you can imagine, there's a heightened awareness in our office right now about public and private roads. But in the long term, we have had discussions with our tax mapping department about ways that these lots can, or these roads can be symbolized differently on the tax map to prevent or at least decrease the likelihood of this mistake happening again. The Technical Review Committee reviewed this waiver request back on March the 10th and recommended approval, recognizing that there was an unintentional error made by the planning staff. The planning board heard this request on March the 21st and voted unanimously to recommend approval. And this will be a one motion item to either approve or deny. The board is not obligated to do either. You can use your best judgment. In the event that you do vote to approve, there is a list of conditions 1 through 8. Which are simply directions for the land surveyor as to how to convert this into a final plat, if it is the will of the board to grant the waiver. And so with that, I apologize one more time. We are working to make sure that this doesn't happen again, but unfortunately, we do need the intervention of the board this morning to decide one way or the other. And with that, I'll pause and take any questions that the board has.
Would you mind reading the 8 items that you referred to?
Sure.
Mr. Tyson?
So these conditions are basically a prescription for converting this sketch plan that's on the screen into a final plat. The title would need to be revised from sketch plan to minor subdivision final plat. We would recommend, instead of labeling them as lots 1 and 2, they be labeled as lots 14A and 14B. Stony Creek Lane will need to be depicted on the plat as a private access easement consistent with the description found in the deed book for that subdivision. The spelling of Wallet Mill Road needs to be corrected. The minimum building setbacks for the 2 lots will need to be shown as dashed lines. If there's a water supply well present on the subject property, that will need to be depicted. There are some certificates that are prescribed by the ordinance that would need to be added. And then finally, a note documenting that the lot would be subject to a waiver and directing people in the future to today's agenda if they needed to find out the details of that waiver. I would note that these are not necessarily deficiencies on the part of the land surveyor. Knowing that there was a question about the issuance of the waiver, I advised the Milburns to just seek a sketch plan at this point and not to employ the surveyor to actually perform the site survey until they knew the outcome of today's request.
Thank you, sir. Questions of Mr. Tyson at this time from board members?
Mr. Tyson, what are those minimum setbacks that was mentioned in condition number 5?
In the A1 zone, they would have to be, and presumably the addition would be made on this lot. So they'd have to be 50 feet from the front lot line, 30 feet from this rear lot line, and 15 feet from any other side that we would consider a side lot line.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Belfield?
What about water and sewage? You would have to have a septic tank?
They would have to have their own septic system, which they would need to have permitted or at least evaluated by a soil scientist before we could record a plat that divides this into 2 lots. And I believe that they are on a well in that subdivision, and so they would either be sharing a well with the initial home that's there, which is certainly a possibility, or they could install their own.
Well, the soil map should be able to tell you the type of soil and whether
Right.
it's
And so if you'll notice this line right here, the very wet soil is in the back portion of that lot, the RAA, I think is what it says. And then you would have some drier, hopefully more viable soil in the forward part of the fat part of the lot right there. But all of that is based on generalities and would have to be nailed down by our health department before a home could be built.
Other questions, Mr. Tyson?
Yeah, Mr. Tyson, just on page 120, the second paragraph, I just want you to make sure I understand that. It says the proposed subdivision of the subject property does not appear to conflict with the restrictive covenants for the subdivision, which state the property shall not be redivided more than one time, and if redivided, shall not result in more than 2 separate parcels of land. Isn't that what is being requested? That it be redivided into
Yes.
2 parcels of land?
Yes, so based on my reading of the covenants, it shall not be redivided more than one time. So this is the one time that will be permitted. And if it is redivided, it shall not result in more than 2 separate parcels. And it results in 2, not more than 2. So based on my reading, this would be the one redivision that is allowed after the initial creation of the subdivision. It shall not be redivided more than one time. This is the one time. Shall not result in more than 2 lots, and it would result in 2 lots.
Thank you.
So these other lots that have 2 addresses on them, have they been divided, or are they still just one tract of land?
So I do note that the adjacent property has 2 address points, but I was not directly involved in that one. It would take me some more research to figure out. But if I could go back to the aerial photo. So the immediately adjacent lot here has 2 address points, and I'm not sure the circumstances that occurred, but it is not subdivided. They're just 2 homes or 2 address points on one lot.
But any of these lots could be subdivided one time with that, based on the covenant?
Based on the covenants and my reading of it, I believe they could, except for the fact that the local regulations for Nash County and the town of Red Oak will prevent it without a waiver.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Anderson?
This might be for the applicant. What monetary investment has been invested in this property since?
We invested, upgrade our home for the sale. And, well, the former property that we looked at, and we put the house up for sale.
Nothing other than done directly to this lot in preparation of this proposed rule into this decision. Some improvements were made to Shelley's parents' home in order for us to be able to live there temporarily while the second residence was being built. So adding, just some kitchen areas and things like that out of our pocket to accommodate us for that time being.
So
And they
that,
would be gifting us this property, so it wouldn't be like we could just go buy land somewhere else. This would be, gifted to us, and that would be a tremendous savings for us. Based on the prices of things, the way they are now, it's just not feasible for us to be able to do this somewhere else.
Mr. Chairman?
See, we'll make sure Mr. Anderson finished. Anything else, Mr. Anderson?
well, this is an error that's not on part of the applicant. And I guess I look at the harm that might have been done to the applicant. And the plaintiffs, the other homeowners have legitimate requests. Both of them are right. And we need to make the right decision.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Wilkins?
Mr. Tyson, if the waiver was granted, would this open up other covenants to actions like this?
It would only affect this lot. In order for somebody else to replicate this result, they would have to have received incorrect written information from my office, and so we're addressing that. So hopefully the answer is no. It would be very tightly restricted to just this lot as far as the impact of the waiver.
Other questions? I have a few, Mr. Tyson, if I may. You made the statement that Red Oak had similar ordinances that even if they were to get annexed into Red Oak, they still couldn't do it. But it appears like what we're really dealing with is a state regulation and not a local regulation anyway. Is that not correct?
I don't believe that the state statute, the state statute makes any lot smaller than 10 acres subject to local review. But the individual jurisdiction, whether it's the county or the town, I believe under the state statute has the right to set the limit of the number of lots that can be there. So I'm not sure I agree with that assessment. The fact that we have to deal with the lot when it's smaller than 10 acres, yes, that's a state requirement. But the specific number of lots that we allow on an easement is an individual decision that the state allows the county or the town to make for itself.
Let me ask the question differently then. Is there something in the Red Oak ordinance that would prevent this from being done in Red Oak, or is that based on the fact of what the state statute says?
The information that I have about the town of Red Oak ordinance was relayed to me from the applicants who spoke with Tracy Sharon, the town clerk, and was told that they have the same limitation on the number of lots served by an easement that the county does. And so both the county or the town would have the opportunity to consider a text amendment to change that limitation. But of course, that would have a broader impact than just a waiver.
Okay. All right. But really, the subdivision was able to be established as it is because of a state statute.
Correct. The exemption for very large lots under the state statute.
Okay. You mentioned during your comments that a text amendment was considered. What would that text amendment be?
The text amendment would, so the piece of ordinance that would need to be waived is the limitation to no more than 4 lots served on an access easement. In order for the text amendment to be effective, it would have to increase that significantly because of this situation. There's already 18 lots that are directly served by that access easement. So my initial thought is it would be a text amendment that would increase the limitation from 4 to at least 19, which would have a dramatic effect on subdivisions that are created on access easements.
So we'd have to change it from 4 to at least 19.
Right. Be a dramatic change.
It would be. You made a statement, or when you read the out that you're using here today, it referred to as long as it doesn't devalue the property or something along that line.
Correct.
How do we determine, or how did staff determine that it didn't devalue it? And it seems like we got a conflict here this morning.
Right.
That some people think it will devalue it, but yet we're using that one item to move this potentially forward.
So it reads, where such violation is not prejudicial to the value or development potential of the subdivision or the adjoining properties. And so I suppose we have 2 questions. One is whether the incorrect determination made by my office impacted the value of the lot in question, that would be the subdivision, or whether the approval of the waiver would impact the adjoining properties. And to be completely honest, I'm not sure that there is a way to effectively address that without having either a real estate professional or a land appraiser weigh in on this request.
And I agree with your statement, sir. you said numerous times, and I apologize, but this was a tough one, and
Sure.
we all know that on the board, and I apologize for asking you so many questions, but I feel like, well, my next question is, you stated that it does not set a precedence. And I'd like for you to explain to me, because we use that word all the time in zoning matters and everything we do, we are concerned about a precedent. So
Right.
what gives you the comfort level or the staff the comfort level that it indeed would not set a precedent?
Well, it is not a policy change. It is a recognition of a staff mistake. And so for this to be applied elsewhere in this subdivision or in another subdivision, the circumstances would have to be replicated first, which would mean that the staff would have to make the mistake, document it, and then the property owner would have to make a significant investment based on that mistake. And so hopefully we're taking steps to limit the probability that this would happen in the future. But this lot would only be allowed to be subdivided on the basis of the fact that the property owners made an investment based on faulty information. So without that first step of the staff providing the faulty information, I don't see how this creates a precedent that can be applied elsewhere.
Okay, thank you, sir. When it went to the planning board and they approved it unanimously, was it any known opposition to it at that meeting?
There was not, but I would also note that because this isn't a public hearing requirement, there was no notice that was sent out to the adjacent property owners.
What made the people that are here today or the ones in the subdivision
I
aware at
believe.
the point that it came to, when it came to
Right.
this board, that's different than the planning board?
Right. I received an inquiry from a member of the subdivision that was aware of this family's plans and was inquiring about the legality of it.
But it was in between the two meetings?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Do you think, I mean, we're gonna have a winner today, or we're gonna have 17 losers today, potentially, or at least 4 that I personally have heard from. Do you think if the board were to table this item, is there more work that could be done, coordinated by your staff, to try to find something where all parties could live with the decision? And I do know I'm putting you on the spot.
Right. I believe we have, in the hopes of preventing today's meeting and the awkward situation we're putting the board in, I think we have exhausted all options. We made a pretty big effort to try to find any solution that would avoid this agenda item today. And so I don't see another way that further time or further research would show us.
Well, my thinking on that is, you know, it appears like the staff made a decision based on no opposition. Appears like the planning board made a decision with no opposition. And then it gets here and it indeed is opposition. So you only had one party to work with up to this point, it appears like.
Right.
Now knowing what both sides are, does your answer stay the same?
My answer on behalf of the staff stays the same. I suppose that you could, as a board, refer this back to the planning board, but the planning board is not obligated to hear from the public, and so it would be up to the chairman, of course, to entertain the opposing viewpoints if they were to rehear this. And I think that the chairman would be willing to do that, but I don't want to speak for him when we have not had that conversation. But that would be one option, would be to refer it back to the planning board if the concern is that the planning board did not hear the opposing point of view.
Well, I, as one commissioner, have a sincere concern about that. Back to if you could pull the map back up that shows what's in Red Oak, which is my district, and what's in Mr. Arrington, which is not, what makes that map so irregular shape? It looks awful odd to me. I know your answer is going to be that's what town of Red Oak annexed, but why was it annexed in such a manner as that?
I believe, my understanding has always been that the annexation for Red Oak, particularly on the extreme edges, was voluntary. And so I assume that this is a representation of the members of the subdivision that either were or were not interested in being annexed at the time that the town made the expansion.
Okay. That in itself makes it difficult for both entities, I would think.
Correct. And I would just echo what Commissioner Arrington said. Neither side is wrong. It's the staff that made an incorrect determination, and we apologize for putting the board in that position and certainly hope to never do it again.
Well, the only way you're not gonna make another mistake, y'all gonna stop doing anything.
That's right.
And I hope you understand that.
That's right.
I appreciate the job, or the board appreciates the job you do, because what you do and what your staff does every day, it's not easy stuff. But I do wish we could somehow find a solution here where more people could bless it than what we are faced with here today. And I'm inclined to ask the board to table it to allow that process to happen. But I guess, of course, it's part my area and part Mr. Arrington's area. Do you have any opposition if I make a motion, or you make a motion to table it, to give them a little time to work on it, Mr. Arrington?
Well, unless you got something new to offer, Mr. Tyson done stated that he has nothing new to offer. The only other option is that you're going to compensate the applicant for the error, or are we going to grant the waiver?
Well, of course, you realize, well, I won't address that today. I think it'd be better if I didn't, because you're putting a legal term on the table that we probably shouldn't get involved in as an elected board.
Mr. Chairman, I think the concern of the whole board is, and my main concern here is, after it's all said and done, no matter which way we do this, you've all got to be neighbors, and that's very important. You know, most of the time neighbors are friends, and I hope that's the way it is here. And I just think that's something we all need to consider, that after all this is said and done, we all got to be neighbors. So if they can work it out somehow, that'd be great.
Okay, well, as
Mr.
chair,
Chairman,
Mr. Belfield, excuse me, sir.
I think we ought just go and make a decision now, one way or the other, up or down.
Yes, I agree.
Well, to satisfy myself, what I've got to do is call for a motion. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to handle this matter.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
Does the applicant and the residents, do you have any issue with some dialogue to see if there's anything that can be accomplished from that? I don't know, I'm just asking. Because to Mr. Cohn's point, you're gonna, if you're gonna be living together, you wanna be able to get along. And
That's what Ms. Raymond Arrington called for us to come here. We have no ill will against them. They're my insurance agent. I mean, we do business with them, but it's just a matter of what's right, what we were told when we bought the land, and what's right in our community. And we just found out about this on Friday, but you know, we fought the Jones Farm subdivision. We tried to keep it 40 instead of 20. It compromised at 30. But the day I went home, I said, you know what, Chuck, I have cussed living on a dirt road for 30 years. 30 years I've cussed about that dirt road and the dust. I said, but you know what? Seeing what we just went through, I know right here we're protected from any changes like that. And in less than a year, here we are. Here we are dealing with this, a change on our road that we did not think this could happen to. But yes, I don't have anything against them. I completely understand what they're going through. And I hope they understand what we're going through. We want to be good neighbors. That's why all of us, it's difficult. We talked about it yesterday. This is difficult for us to be here because of this.
And Mr. Tyson said several times in his comments that he hopes this don't happen again. You know, that's what I keep hearing, is hope it don't happen again.
That's
So that's a big word.
the waiver domino effect,
And
the new norm.
Because we never thought this would happen. What were you going to say? I always overtalk you.
You say that in a public forum?
I didn't hear what she said then, maybe I don't need
Can you
to.
feel my pain? We were
I feel your
always
pain every day, sir.
We were always under the impression that you could subdivide one time, but each parcel of land had to be a minimum of 10 acres. In other words, if you had 10 acres, you couldn't divide it and have 2 5s.
Okay.
But if you had 50 acres, you could divide it one time as long as each section remained 10 acres. And I know it's not the public comment section, but I have to throw this out there. Ms. Williams' mother has approached me
Miss Williams.
numerous times over the years about subdividing this lot, and I had informed her against the neighborhood ordinances stated you could divide one time as long as each parcel of land remained 10 acres. Now, I understand that's not what's in the deed book, but that was what we understood. And that's what everybody else here understands.
And that's the reason why we made the decision to meet with the board, so that before we did anything, selling our house, you know, any of that, we met at the planning department to confirm yes or no, if this is the case, we can do it, and we were told yes.
Rather than just taking
A word of, you know,
whether you trust somebody or not, you still want the
the
legal,
word from the planning department.
the legal confirmation of what has said in the covenants.
Could the planning office have gone back to the applicant when the mistake was discovered and said, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. You cannot do what you're requesting to do?
We did, and then they inquired about their appeal options. And as I stated, there is one for unintentional error.
Mr. Tyson, how much time transpired between the time the error was discovered and the applicant was notified?
The error was discovered in a meeting with the applicant, so it was instantaneous.
Adam, does your interpretation of these covenants, indeed, like he said, it could be divided but not less than 10 acres?
I read through the covenants, and I don't recall that detail. Before I'd go on record, I'd need to read them closely again.
Mr. Tyson, tell me the timeline again, because she just spoke from the time
So
the staff member.
they were told that they could subdivide the property on July 7, 2021. 1 week later, they asked for and received that same determination in writing via email. Then they didn't return to our office for about 6 months on January 19th of this year. At that meeting, they met with a different staff member, and they were told that what they were informed of before was in error. And at that point, they asked about their appeal options, and that's how we ended up here.
And so you had, Ms. Milburn, you all had sold your house within that 6 months?
Yes, ma'am, we listed it in August, which was a few weeks after the meeting, and it sold in October.
Get your link. About this.
Chairman, this is what,
Adam, is there any way you can put the setbacks on that map?
There is no way I can show it right now. They would have to be shown before it could be recorded. But again, the front setback would be 50 feet from the road, which I don't anticipate they would try to place the home in this strip anyway. So it would be 30 feet from the rear, which again, maybe the wet soil is going to push them up closer anyway. And then 30 feet from the rear, 15 feet from either side right here.
Mr. Tyson, what is that width of where it narrows down right there? Appears to be 25 feet, is that correct?
Yes. 25 feet.
Is that what our minimum private access is that we dealt with a few years back in another similar situation?
So that's not a road, that's just a portion of the lot, and the ordinance does not give you a prescribed width that has to be. I would never recommend that it be less than what you could comfortably fit a vehicle down, just because it's going to have to house a driveway. But the UDO does not comment on what that width between the foot, if you will, at the road and the main part of the lot. There's no specific standard for what that width has to be.
But in our ordinance, and it was in Commissioner Outlaw's district some time ago, we had a second house requesting to put behind another house, and there was a minimum width that easement had to be, and I think my memory says it was 30 feet, but I'm not sure of that.
I don't recall the specific case you're referencing. If you
It
are
was prior to your time.
I'm sorry?
It was prior to your
Okay.
time. Do you recall it, Mr. Outlaw, it was the Slavins?
Vaguely, some discussion about the access for emergency services.
Right, it was based on emergency services access. What is that minimum?
If you were establishing an easement today, under today's rules, the easement on paper has to be 45 feet wide, and we require you to clear a 20-foot wide strip within that 45 for emergency vehicle access.
That's what it was, yeah.
Okay.
So you require 45.
Or an easement that serves multiple lots, and 20-foot cleared space within that for emergency access. In this case, this isn't a roadway, it's an actual piece of the contiguous lot.
But in the other one, what I'm saying was, it was a situation, they were gonna put one house behind another house only on one lot, and we required them to put 45 feet easement to the second house.
Okay.
So, but that really doesn't have anything to do here, other than we are conflicting, again, what we did in that particular situation. All right, we've spent quite a bit of time on this. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Arrington?
may I make the motion that the board approve the waiver request?
I have a motion to approve the waivers. There's a second to that motion.
second.
And a second. Any questions on the motion?
Would that be subject to the 8 listed conditions?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Arrington?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Mr. Belfield? Your
What's that?
second? Was your second contingent upon the 8
Oh,
conditions?
yes, following those 8, yeah, oh, yes.
Mr. Tyson, a question before we vote. Should we add another condition, or can we add another condition, which seems to be of interest, if it is approved, that the house would be built at the rear, or should we stay away from that?
The UDO permits the board to attach what it calls reasonable conditions to the issuance of the subdivision waiver to ensure that the purposes of the waived requirements are met to the extent possible. So I would say that probably is within the board's power. And certainly the applicants have expressed, I believe this morning, their intent to do what you're describing. So I'm not sure they would have an objection.
Any interest on the board to add in that one?
I think that's a reasonable addition. I think that's what they're planning to do.
And that would
From what
be
I've heard.
to ensure the construction of the home is to the right of this narrow portion. So in the the large rear portion of the lot, correct?
Yes.
We could easily add that as condition number 9.
Is that acceptable to the motion maker?
Yes, yeah, you can add.
Second.
Okay, I'm fine.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'd like to have a show of hands of who approves the motion. Any opposed? Motion carries, 6-1 vote.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for being here today.
And it's my sincere hope that we're not here again. Thank you for your assistance.
All right, with that, we will move on to item number 10, which is a resolution authorizing an AIA grant application, and I'll call on Mr. Boone at this time to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow members of the board. The item you have before you this morning is 2 resolutions. You may recall the county received 2 AIA grants for work in the Northern Ash District for the water system, Central Nash District for the sewer system. The 2 grant applications, or excuse me, the 2 resolutions you have before you this morning is to authorize staff to submit 2 additional grant applications to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for work. Also in the Northern Ash system, this time would be for the sewer system, not the water system, and the Central Nash for the water system. And what this grant would allow us to do is to advance our efforts to map the existing system so that we have good mapping. We've already heard a reference to the need for accurate mapping, conveying good information this morning, and that would be the intent of this grant application, to assist us with our mapping efforts, to inventory the assets that we currently have in the utility system, and to plan for their maintenance in the years to come. We actually had submitted, you may recall, we submitted 4 grant applications previously in the previous round. Actually, all 4 were scored pretty closely, and if funds were available, all 4 would have been funded by the state. Because of the lack of funding, the state asked us to prioritize those requests, and they funded our 2 top priorities and encouraged us to reapply at a future grant submission. So that is what these 2 resolutions will allow us to do.
Any questions, Mr. Boone? Pleasure of the board.
Move for approval?
Have a motion to approve by Commissioner Leggett. Is there a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Combs and Commissioner Arrington. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Item number 11 is a resolution authorizing North Carolina NCDEQ grant application, sir. Mr. Boone.
Department of Environmental Quality. So similar to the previous 2 resolutions, you have 8 resolutions in your agenda packet. This is in conjunction with grant funding application that the state has made available. The state also received federal dollars through the American Rescue Plan Act. They have indicated that they intend to entertain 2 grant submission requests. First round is in May, second round is in September. These grants would be available for a variety of potential water and sewer related projects. There's north of $650 million that the state will be awarding across the state. And we have identified 4 projects, although I mentioned we have 8 resolutions. That $650 million has been allocated in a number of different categories. At this point in time, we do not know if we will be eligible to apply for grant funds for distressed utilities. The state will be revisiting that issue this month, but until such time as they have made that determination, we do not know if we would qualify or not. But anticipating that we might, we have got 4 sets of grant resolutions in front of you that would allow us to apply for funding in that category should we be so designated. But the projects we've identified are work in Northern Ash. I mentioned the AIA grant application for Northern Ash Sewer. This would be to fund some work to the sewer system, rehabbing that system. We have gravity mains there, 2 lift stations, probably 3+ miles of force main, and we intend to submit a grant application to fund that work. Central Nash, we're doing some work now, asset inventory and assessment grant mapping. We've done some smoke testing, and we intend to submit or propose to submit a grant application to fund work in that area. We also are considering a grant application to fund work for a portion of Phase 2 in Northern Nash to serve some of the areas that the state has prioritized, underserved areas, if you will, in certain census tracts. And then we also propose to submit a grant application to look at the development of sewer in the southern portion of the county. We have an agenda item coming up looking at a merger and regionalization feasibility study. And then this grant application would seek funds to implement one or more recommendations that would come out of that study. Maybe a little premature on that grant application, if we're not at a point that we feel like we could submit a grant application in May. Fully anticipate that we would recommend a grant application during the second round in September, but we'd like to potentially submit a application to get some indication from the state about how well that would score and what the likelihood of funding for some future project would be. So at this point, we're asking for the board to approve resolutions for all 4 of those projects. And again, one based on one set of funds that are available statewide, another set of resolutions that are available for utilities that we designate as distressed. Again, we hope to know this month if we would be eligible for that funding or not, but we're trying to keep all of our options open. But again, it's $650 million. Actually, the state appropriated $1.6 billion. A little more than half of that has already been allocated, direct allocations. You may have heard about some allocations to the towns of Spring Hope and to Bailey. So about $800 million of that has already been allocated, and this is the balance of those funds.
Questions of Mr. Boone? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Item 11 stands approved. We'll move to item 12, Mr. Boone, which is Nash County Detention Facility Addition and Renovation Change Order number 1, I guess.
Yes, sir. This is our first one. This is one of the change orders you love to come to the board with. I wish this was always the case. It's always, unfortunately, not the case. This particular change order addresses 7 items that we've identified up to this point on the capital project at the detention facility. And the net result of those 7 items, and I believe you have itemization in your agenda packet, amounts to a net reduction in the contract of $93,521.07. Again, that encompasses 7 different items, the most significant of which are some items that were identified early on in the project. I would attribute those to value engineering the project that resulted in a reduction of almost $146,000. We had several other reductions, several increases, but again, the net result is a decrease in the contract amount at this juncture of the project, $93,521.07. We'd be glad to answer any questions you have about any of those items.
Any questions of Mr. Boone? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, there's a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Change order number 1 stands approved, Mr. Boone. You can move to the next item, which is merger Tell you what, why don't you tell us what it is, sir?
MRF. Merger Regionalization Feasibility Study. I struggle with it as well. I like MRF. So I mentioned in a previous grant round made available by the state, you may recall the board approved a resolution to apply for funding to fund a MRF study to look at the issue of sewer in the southern part of the county, working in conjunction with the town of Bailey and the town of Middlesex. We received notification, we received unofficial notification back in February, official notification about 2 weeks ago that the county had been awarded $50,000 to fund that study. We had worked in conjunction with the Wooten Company based on our relationship with them and the work they had done on behalf of the county with the Middlesex Corporate Center. They have drafted a scope of services for that study, and I have the contract in front of you today for your review and approval. And our intent would be to move as quickly as possible to schedule a kickoff meeting between the county and the towns of Bailey and Middlesex regarding this study, get underway as quickly as we can, hopefully to position us for a grant application in May, but certainly if not in May, then in September. But the Wooten Company would be assisting us with this study. They're familiar with many of the issues that we are aware of as it relates to sewer in this portion of the county, and feel like they're well positioned to help us with this project.
Any questions, Mr. Boone, on this one? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the request.
Motion by Commissioner Combs, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. I hope you get all of them approved. All right, we'll move now to item number 14, which is approval of a tax exempt loan for Momire Fire Department. Now I'll call on Scott Rogers to this one. And Madam Clerk, could you check on Mr. Hill's arrival time for me? As you noticed, Mr. Rogers is sitting up front with us today. I think we all knew that prior to Stacy being selected to be our county manager, she had a long planned trip planned, and therefore she's out of the country for a couple of weeks. I think we all have come to learn over the years that apparently Mr. Rogers is our designated pinch hitter on our team, and numerous times has been appointed. I think this may be, I tried to count last night, maybe 4 or 5 times that he's been asked to fill in certain situations. How many do you keep up with, or do you know?
I think it's 4.
4,
You're
okay,
right.
okay.
Yes, sir.
4 is what I come up with, but I knew I probably missed one. But thank you for being willing to do that, and thank you for being here.
Sure. So in a very similar fashion to last month, I come before you again with a tax exempt loan request, this time from the Momire Fire Department. Momire is purchasing a new truck and financing that through Southern Bank, and requesting a tax exempt loan from them in the amount of $536,000. Of course, the tax exempt loan to receive that special rate does require through IRS code to be approved by this board, but in no way obligates the Board of Commissioners. So I would ask today for your approval of the resolution, it isn't a resolution allowing the tax exempt loan.
Any questions on this item?
I'd just make a comment.
Sure.
Appreciate your support on this. The Momire Volunteer Fire Department is replacing an over 20-year-old fire truck. So it would be a big day for them. And with that, I move for approval.
All right, have a motion by Commissioner Leggett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Arrington. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. We'll move on to item number.
Might I say one more thing, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely, sir. Excuse me.
I just think it's worthwhile to note that this type of tax exempt loan does require quite a bit of work, that we come to you for approval. They also have to have a public hearing or advertisement at the fire department level. But it's worth the trouble, because it does save a tremendous amount of interest rate points for the fire department. So we
It
certainly
does.
appreciate you doing these for us. Thank you.
It's just the statement that it in no way obligates us seems to be too good to be true, but
Yes.
we hadn't been called to participate in one of the loans, many loans we've approved over the years, so I hope we wouldn't ever get to that point. But
Sure.
as all the volunteer fire departments know, we realize what a bargain they are from this board, and we'll probably continue to approve them as they bring them up here.
I'm sure proud of all of them. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna skip number 15. I know Mr. Hill had another obligation this morning and told me he may be a little late getting here, so we'll move to item number 16, which is the budget amendments, and must be vacation week because we're missing a finance director, but we have a very notable person to fill in for her, and probably is the one that puts the work together anyway. Good morning, Mel.
Thank you. Good morning. I have 7 budget amendments to put before you, but there was also an additional one laid from Economic Development in front of you this morning. Do you all have that one? Okay. The first budget amendment request is for the Department of Social Services. It's presented to increase adult daycare funding by $4,988 to provide purchase services to clients needing in-home care. The increase is due to NC legislation that implements wage increases to direct care health care workers, and no additional county funds are needed for this budget request. The second one is for $60,000 to increase appropriating additional funds for the county ABC mixed beverage funds. The request is an estimate based on the annualized collections to date in order to expend the funds as directed by General Statute 18B-805H through June 2022. No additional funds are requested for that one either. Legal services, we're asking for a $90,000 increase appropriation for additional funds for county legal services to cover through June 2022. The fourth request is for insurance proceeds for the sheriff's office. It is to budget $34,241 received for a sheriff's office vehicle identified as totaled. The totaled vehicle is a 2020 Dodge Durango. These funds will be used to purchase a replacement vehicle. The fifth budget amendment request is for $7,500. This is additional funds to accommodate conference registration and hotel deposit for NCACC and NACO annual conferences, and that is for the governing board. The sixth budget request is for Recreation Department. It's to increase the budget by $6,336 to make funds available that have already been collected in sponsorship revenue for our spring sports such as baseball, softball, t-ball, flag football, and soccer. The seventh request is for emergency services for $15,320. It's requested to make funds available for a supplemental grant of the American Rescue Plan from the State of North Carolina Department of Public Safety. These funds are to fund projects related to Homeland Security planning, operations, equipment purchases, training and exercises, and other emergency management performance grant requirements. No county funds are required for that request. And then the additional one that was laid before you for economic development is for $588,000. This amendment is presented to request an appropriation of $588,000 from the general fund balance to purchase economic development investment property, engineered design work for the completion of the Middlesex Corporate Parkway Road and property surveys. And that's all of them if you...
All right, any questions on any of the amendments? I will say you will get an update on that last one during our economic development presentation a little bit later on, but it is to start the process of completing the road at the Middlesex Corporate Park, because we have a sale, as you know, for a property at the other end of the road where we don't currently have a completed road. No questions, I'd entertain a motion for approval for the 8 budget amendments.
Make a motion to approve the 8 budget amendments.
Have a motion by Commissioner Combs, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Belfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion stands approved. Ms. Easton, and thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda. Okay. Ms. Till, you want to go ahead and make we'll back up to yours if you're ready. Or if you need to rest a minute, we'll take care of something else. You're already standing up. Why don't you come forward, sir? This is back to item number 15, which is recognition of Public Health Week, which I saw the governor do sometime at the end of last week.
Yes, this is National Public Health Week, and it's also recognized by the state, and we received a template, a resolution from the state that went to all the local health departments in the past couple of weeks, and they just felt like we should come before the commissioners and as a morale booster to the employees, the management staff, thought last week if I would present this to the commissioners and see if I could get your endorsement. And it reads like this. It's Public Health Week in the nation this particular week. It's I think you received it in your packet, but it's a Nash County Board of Commissioners resolution. Whereas the Nash County Board or Nash County Public Health Workers are a critical component of our emergency response to natural and man-made disasters and widespread disease outbreaks in our county, including COVID-19. And whereas our county and state public health workers have been courageous, inventive, and tireless in their work to protect our residents from threats of COVID-19 pandemic, while continuing to perform their essential public health functions, and they're the other public health functions, other times at risk of their own safety and health. And whereas public health measures to control and eliminate infectious diseases, improve environmental sanitation, promote healthy lifestyle practices have been a greatest cause of improved status and increased life expectancy for residents of the county and all North Carolina residents. And whereas public health plays a critical role advancing health equity, preventing chronic diseases and injuries, resulting in improved productivity and decreased health care costs for all North Carolinians, and whereas the Nash County Board of Commissioners is committed to a continued emphasis on prevention of public health and to helping our county and all North Carolina reach a better state of health through actions outlined in Healthy North Carolina 2030 objectives. And whereas communities, local health departments, employees, hospitals, healthcare providers, individuals, families, insurers, county leaders, policymakers, faith-based communities, schools, child care facilities must work together to identify and develop innovative solutions to health problems facing the people of Nash County. And whereas the Nash County Board of Commissioners encourages all residents to recognize that public health is working to ensure that all residents are protected from threats such as COVID-19, influenza, foodborne diseases, injuries, chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and asthma. And whereas April 4th through the 10th, 2022 has been designated as National Public Health Week, now therefore, we, the members of the Nash County Board of Commissioners in regular session, do hereby unanimously proclaim that April 4th through the 10th, 2022 shall be designated as Public Health Week in Nash County, and commend its observance to all residents and convey our greatest gratitude to those public health professionals who serve our county every day. And this in witness there where I have here unto set my hand and affix the seal of the county of Nash, the state of North Carolina, this 4th day of April in the year of our Lord 2022. Again, this is more for the staff back at the Health Department than it is for me standing before you. And it's a resolution that I present to you today for your consideration.
Any questions, Mr. Hill? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
I have, Madam Clerk, at least 6 of us or 7 of us. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I will tell you, going into the beginning of the week, we're looking at just about 10 new cases. So we're continuing to see a decline in COVID-19.
Great.
We usually cut it off at midnight on Monday night, right after the ball game tonight. Cut it off.
You better not wait 24 hours without the ball game problem.
We hope we'll have a good report from both.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for everything you and
Thank you, sir.
your staff does for Nash County citizens.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Belfield,
can we have a 10-minute break?
I have a request for a 10-minute recess by a sitting commissioner. All right, I call us back to order at this time, and we will be starting on item number 17, which is board appointments, and I'll turn it over to Scott Rogers.
So we have 2 boards today we need to address with appointments. The first one being the Tourism Development Authority. There are 6 members on the TDA whose term will expire April the 30th of '22. All of these members are willing, recommended, and eligible for reappointment with the exception of Mr. Daly, Mr. Dan Daly. The board is being asked to consider today the reappointment of members Retho Webster Williams Jr., George Griffin, Mark Cone, Brittany Parker, and Lisa Ann Ferguson.
All right, any questions on those reappointments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for reappointing those 5 board members.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. And the one, Dan Daly, who worked for L&L for many, many years, has served his 9 years, and cannot be reappointed according to our bylaws. And I laid on your desk this morning, apologize for getting it this late, but I got it yesterday afternoon, a proposal that I had for a Michael Wise to be appointed for his seat. That particular seat has to be filled by a person involved in travel and tourism, not a collector necessarily, which is a owner or a worker at a hotel, but a person that is in travel and tourism like Dan was, because he worked for convenience stores. But Michael Wise is the owner of West Ridge Grill up at the Harris Teeter Shopping Center. He lives in Nashville, and I think would be a great addition to the board. He is very involved in the community, and I would ask for his consideration to be appointed in that seat.
Make a motion, we appoint Michael Wise.
All right, have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Combs, second by Commissioner Outlaw and Commissioner Wilkins. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you. I want to get that done because our budget meeting is coming up in May, and that'll give us a full board to deal with the request for the upcoming year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do
Great
you have
appointment.
anything else?
Yes, sir. The Nash County Board of Adjustments, there are 2 members whose terms expire April the 30th of '22 for the Nash County Board of Adjustments. Mr. Dennis Ray Cobb is eligible, willing, and recommended for reappointment. However, Mr. Tommy Bass has served 3 consecutive terms as a regular board member and is therefore ineligible for appointment at this time. So there will be a need for a new alternate member number 3 to be appointed. So at this point, I would request your approval of reappointment of Mr. Cobb.
Okay. Is there a motion to reappoint Mr. Cobb to the Board of Adjustment?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Commissioner Harrington. Is there a second?
Second.
second by Commissioner Outlaw, at Belfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Any name we have for the other position, or we need to find one?
We do need to find one, and I would bring to your attention that there will not be a board member from Commissioner District 4 at this point.
Okay. You want to look for that person? Okay.
Just offer up if Ms. Leggett has any difficulty finding a person, I'm pretty sure she won't. And I've got a couple of people that are interested in service in this board.
And what seat was it?
It's actually number 3 alternate. Due to succession of the seats, it'll be actually the third alternate that will be
Third alternate.
going in.
Okay. All right, any more appointments?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I,
Mr. Anthony?
yes. Well, you know, you have your board appointments. You have me on the Spalding Board of Directors as Nash County Representative, so I resigned from that board because they are in our budget. And we still wish to have a representative represent the County Board of Commissioners. Ms. Lou Richardson, I want to recommend Ms. Lou Richardson to replace me as a voting member on that board.
She is acknowledged, she's willing to do that.
Yes, I
Of course,
spoke.
I know she's been on there.
I spoke with her. Right now, she's a non-voting member, so that will make her a voting member representing the Nash County Board of Commissioners.
Go ahead, Mr. Rogers.
And you said Spalding Family Resource Center?
Right.
I currently have her serving on that board until 9/1 of ’23.
I know, but she's really serving as a non-voting member.
I understand. Thank you. Okay.
So
All
that
right.
will make her a voting member.
Okay, thank you.
If this board appoints her. Gotcha.
What board is that?
Spalding.
Spalding Resource Center.
If you recall, Mr. Arrington needed to resign because of the new bill, which it's funny,
There's a lot of boards that maybe possibly the commissioners may have to, that we're serving on may have to resign.
I think we've all taken care of ours, Mr. Belfield, with the exception, I don't know where we stand presently, but I resigned from mine 12/31, which was Christian Fellowship Home. I did get a call from your president. What is his title that's over that organization, Mr. Arrington?
Say that again.
The person that's over the Spalding organization, is he the president or the chairman of that organization?
John Perry?
Yes. Is he the chairman or president?
He's the president.
He's the president, okay. He did call me and want to make sure that you really needed to resign. And,
Okay.
so I told him, according to our attorney, he did. So he hated to see that happen, I think. So we have a suggestion to appoint Ms. Richardson from the board so she would be a voting member. I would entertain a motion if it's in proper order, or I'll take your statement as a motion, Mr. Arrington.
Yeah, so moved that we appoint Ms. Lou Richardson to serve on the Spalding Resource Center Board, representing,
Second.
as a representative for Nash County.
Okay,
Board of
have a motion by Commissioner Arrington, second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Arrington, will we now need to take action to replace her?
I don't think that's a commissioner
Gotcha.
appointment. I don't believe.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Verify that, but I'm pretty sure it's not.
We will. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on appointments? I'd open the floor up to any commissioner that has a comment or a question.
I've got two comments this
Sure.
morning. First of all, this past Saturday was opening weekend for the Nash County Farmers Market, which is located in the Mills District in Rocky Mount. I was there both as a commissioner and as a vendor, And I would say that there was a lot of people in attendance and a very good opening weekend. I think the weather had a lot to do with that, which is a good thing. So just remind our local residents to please support that market. And it will continue to be open on Saturday mornings through December. The second comment I'd like to make is that the Land Use Plan Working Group has continued to meet, and their work is well underway. There is a website that was set up early on for that working group. That website is NASHCO, the abbreviation for county, NASHCOlanduseplan.com, and there are records of our meetings there and summaries of the presentations posted there. If you click on the resources section, you can find that. The work to date of that committee will be presented very soon to the Nash County Planning Board as well as to the Nash County Board of Commissioners. And following that, there will be public input meetings held, and those will be announced, I expect, on the county social media websites or social media sites. That's all I have.
Good. Thank you, Commissioner Leggett. Other comments from Commissioners?
I got a few things.
Sure.
First, I would advise the board, I'm sure you know, we have no April mid-month meeting. We do have a May mid-month meeting, and it'd be my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, that at that meeting, we do our committee reports, but that we set aside time for budget review as needed and not do inside-outside presentations. That would be my recommendation, and if that's what we do, then we won't need to identify an inside-outside presenter. Third thing I've got is related to the intersection of Old Carriage and Eastern Sunset Avenue, where Sheets, EP Mart, Hardee's, and then there's a vacant lot are located. I want to ask this board to authorize our staff to prepare a resolution to go to the governor and to our local legislators requesting that they get involved and do what may be appropriate to reconsider having left turns at that intersection. Currently, the left turns have been removed. I've been involved in this in several meetings, discussions, not only with those businesses, but we've received input from the community college through Dr. Honeycutt, and I think it would be detrimental to all of them if we don't have left turns at that intersection. Those businesses, at least the EP Mart and the Hardee's people and the Sheets people from after the meeting have indicated, and I know the vacant lot owner has indicated a willingness to work with the DOT and do what's necessary. I think Ms. Sharon from the EP Mart indicated that they were willing to relocate their tanks at their cost if they could accommodate left turns. So I would just like to ask this board to authorize our staff to prepare that resolution for approval at our May meeting, our first meeting in May.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner Hall?
I would just like to get the board's thoughts on that resolution.
Yeah, I'm going to take care. Do you have any other points
No,
that I'll take it?
And you're talking about left turn coming from Nashville?
I'm talking about,
At Old Carriage Road.
there's no left turns currently planned there for any direction.
All
What-
four approaches.
They're planning, if you come through that intersection from any direction, you've got to go down and do a U-turn at the roundabout, and to accommodate this plan, they've got to add another roundabout at Morning Glory. So you go down and you do that roundabout. The residents in there are concerned that when these people do this U-turn, they're not coming back to that intersection. They're going to use that subdivision as a thoroughfare. And the same concern exists with the community college. So I just think it's not a good situation. I think Ms. Sharon made the most memorable comment that I can recall from that meeting when she said, people, when they come to a business like EP Mart or Sheetz, it's a convenience location. And if it's not convenient to get to that location, they're not going there. And I've traveled enough with Ruerton and in other ways to know that when you travel a route and if it's not convenient to get to a place, they're not going to go there. So I think it's going to negatively impact their business if they don't have those left turns in that area.
Well, I'll be frank with you, these roundabouts, I question them when they start putting them in. They got them out there on Winstead and Bats. And you got to go down and turn and come back. Hunter Hill Road, the same thing. And it's inconvenient. And Department of Transportation, in contacting them, they said this is safer to not have those left turns. And I don't agree with them, because I haven't seen all that many accidents where people are turning left.
All right, is back to Mr. Outlaw's request to have the staff prepare a resolution. Is it any commissioner that wouldn't support that?
He was asking for the staff to
Yes, sir.
study and come back with the,
Develop the resolution and present it at the May meeting.
For us to adopt. Other questions? Roger, you make sure staff knows that. Great idea. All right.
And again, I want you to understand, I highly value what the DOT does, and I'm not looking to get at odds with the DOT. If you go out to 97 at Jack's Grocery, they have accommodated us with dedicated left turns there, and I've just found out, I requested that they do the same thing at Westmount and Halifax Road, and they're going to accommodate us with that. And they're very, very dangerous intersections to get through without something like that to accommodate the traffic. So, you know, I value what the DOT does, and I think this is above them, and that's why I think the governor and the legislators need to try to get into it. I think it's a money thing, really.
Yep. All right. Any other commissioner have any comment on anything else? I'll be very brief. First thing, housing report, I try to do each month. I will note that we had a very active month as it relates to non-housing construction, in that we had $13,758,000, almost $14 million worth of permits issued for non-commercial construction. One of them being the upfit of the shell building we just closed in the Middlesex Park. Was a substantial permit that was requested, but all total is a total of $14 million. On the home side, we issued 34 new home permits in the county in the month of March, which is a little over one a day, and we had 18 different builders to pull those permits. So we still have great activity, plus we have a large number of permit applicants, and it's all not concentrated by one individual, but 18 different builders, and many of those were located out of our area, quite frankly. The second thing that I had was Ms. Leggett mentioned opening day at the farmers market, and I do want to also make you aware that Ms. Boone, I think about a year ago, we started trying to get, a year and a half ago, additional parking at the farmers market, and we had entered into an agreement with Capital Broadcasting that they would provide us with a piece of land, and we put money in capital improvement budget to build a parking lot. But in the end, Capital Broadcasting decided that they would furnish the land, but then they would also put the parking lot in too, and it was completed through diagonally, as you saw. And I noticed last Saturday night it was full when you had the bluegrass at the farmers market. And then certainly Saturday it was full as well. So I do think we ought to get staff to write a letter to Capital Broadcasting company and thank them for providing that parking lot, because it's really a great help for the farmers market. They, of course, provided it twofold for events they have where they needed additional parking, but they're located in such a place. And Mr. Boone, I know we've got, that we don't really know when, but we got some improvements coming to that intersection on the resurfacing that's going to make it safer, I think. Could you address that briefly? Or do you recall exactly what's been going on there? We are expecting some improvement to be made to make it safer for people to come from that side of the street into the farmer's market.
Correct. So as part of the City of Rocky Mount's resurfacing contract with Barnhill Construction, and I guess that also would be in conjunction with the state, when Peachtree Street and Falls Road are repaved, they will be restriping those streets to provide bicycle lanes and also for pedestrian crosswalks. So they're going to reduce the lanes, which should reduce speeds, and also provide amenities for bicyclists and pedestrians to try to address the safety concerns.
Thank you.
Could I ask, are they gonna also put signage? I know if you go out to Highway 97, like you're going out of town, they've got that pedestrian crossing, and they've got signage there to slow the traffic down, so you know in advance you're coming to it.
Yeah, I believe signage will be included, and that will be driven by the MUTCD, manual uniform traffic control devices, but the DOT adheres to that pretty strictly.
Thank you.
So if you would just make a note also, Scott, about management preparing a letter on behalf of the board, from the board, to thank them for what they did out there for the parking lot. So I don't think we ended up spending any funds, did we? So between what they did and what the state's going to do, we would have a parking lot right across the street from the farmer's market that we didn't have to provide any financing for. And the last thing, as all of you know, I have served on the MPO, Municipal Planning Organization, for a number of years since becoming a commissioner. And at our last meeting, our chairman, W.B. Bullock, resigned, and the board saw fit to elect me chairman of that, which to my knowledge is probably the first time that we, in a very long time at least, we may have had one in years past, that the chairman was not from the city of Rocky Mount. I was a little surprised they chose to do that, but anyway, that did. So I will have those 4:30 meetings on that alternate Monday that I will do my best to try to finish up here so I can get there on time. But I was very thankful of them choosing to do that. I think the motion was made by the Nashville, Louise Hinton, representative on that board, and then seconded by the DOT representative, Mr. Melvin Mitchell, who I made a motion to be elected chairman, but he chose, due to time constraints, turn that down. So just for the note of the commissioners on that item, and that's all I've got. Anything else you think of? If not, I'll turn it over to Mr. Rogers for the manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have a few items. The first being that the position of Assistant County Manager, that job posting will continue to remain open in the absence of our manager. Next is our weekly COVID-19 response team calls. As you've been familiar with for nearly 2 years now, we have decided to discontinue those. The manager consulted with Mr. Hill, and they made the decision to discontinue the weekly calls, but continue to send a weekly email from the health department sharing COVID numbers of new positive cases, hospitalizations, deaths, and vaccination information. Should the need to schedule a call arise, then the manager will do that on a as-needed basis. Next is simply a reminder of the official announcement and groundbreaking for Sonovatech's new first wave manufacturing facility. That will be this Wednesday, April the 6th at 10 a.m. at the Middlesex Corporation Center Shell Building at 7540 Middlesex Corporate Parkway. The next item, Ms. Janice Evans and Ms. Susan Phelps are assisting the Town of Red Oak clerk, Ms. Tracy Sharon, and the Town of Nashville clerk, Ms. Sarah Tinkham, in planning and hosting the Eastern Region Municipal Clerks Spring Meeting on Friday, April the 8th. They are expecting about 40 clerks at the Agricultural Center. Chairman Davis will be providing a welcome at 8:45, and you all are invited to stop by and show your support. The county offices will be closed Friday week, April the 15th, in observation of Good Friday. I'd also like to invite you to an event that the Recreation and Senior Services Department will be hosting, a community day at the park and a mother-son luau at Nash County Miracle Park at Coopers. That will be on Saturday, April the 30th, from 11 until 4. And certainly you're invited to come out and enjoy those events. And lastly, a reminder that the Senior Services is hosting a celebratory lunch for successfully achieving national accreditation on Wednesday, April the 20th. If you have not yet registered but would like to attend that event, please call Ms. Morgan Dowdy at the Senior Center. And I believe that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any questions of Mr. Rogers on the manager's report? Seeing none, at this time, if there's no other business, I would ask for a motion to go into closed session. And I think we will be moving to the commissioner's room, commissioner's conference room, thank you. And Mr. Durham, do you anticipate any action to be taken after that meeting?
No, sir.
I really can't, I don't know if there was any economic development action we would need to take or not.
There may be some down.
May be something there.
Closed session, I believe.
Possibly, but if it is, we will come back out here and take care of that. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Arrington. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? We will call the regular session back to order at this time. There were no action taken in closed session that requires a vote in public session. One matter to clear up, Mr. Bill has questioned a meeting with the joint school board, which he has for tomorrow night. I don't think that's correct. When is that meeting?
May 3rd, I think.
May 3rd? May 3rd, yes. Okay. All right.
I'd entertain a motion to close the regular Board of Commissioners meeting for the month of April.
So moved.
Moved by
said-
Commissioner Wilkins, there's a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw, Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? Did you have a question, Mr. Bellfield?
Oh, did she say the 3rd or the 30th?
Third.
The day after our regular meeting.
What time's that meet?
Oh,
Dinner's at
okay, I'm looking at June here. All right, okay.
You gonna be early first, and then you gonna be late, Mr. Bellfield.
Yeah.
All in favor of the motion to close the regular session meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. We stand adjourned.